Religion and Worldviews in 1944 and 2021, a sociological analysis of religious education in two historical contexts. In this talk, I want to put forward four sociological propositions. 1. Religious education is always part of the process of socialisation into a national identity rather than education per se. It is about preparing the child to fit in with societal norms of behaviour, social values and dominant beliefs. 2. If you look at the society children had to be prepared to fit into in the Britain of the 1940s and compare it with the society children are growing up into now in the third decade of the 21st century, you can understand why the discussion around the nature of RE in the two contexts is so different. 3. In this sense, there is no inherent character in the subject of RE in the way that there is in, say, mathematics or history, which develop and change according to their own disciplinary particularities. RE does not have a disciplinary particularity, and it changes not according to its own logic, but rather in line with developments in social structure and culture. 4. On the current trajectory, what is called RE is becoming a form of secular citizenship education. So let us start with the 1940s and in particular the 1944 Education Act. In its time, the 1944 Education Act was an extraordinary political achievement, creating a new post-war consensual framework for a more equitable system of schooling. For the first time ever, primary and secondary education would be provided to all free of charge in England and Wales. But what is particularly noteworthy is that the Act said absolutely nothing about the school curriculum. Religious education was the only compulsory subject that it prescribed. Every local education authority was to be responsible for drawing up an agreed syllabus of religious instruction, which schools in its area would be required to follow. To the contemporary mind, it does seem quite extraordinary that a government should introduce radical educational change but say nothing about what pupils should be taught, only which religion they should be inducted into. The politicians of the time reflected the society around them. Britain was an overwhelmingly Christian country with an established church whose supreme governor was the reigning monarch. There was a general expectation that children should be brought up in the Christian faith and that the ethics and morals taught in schools should be Christian ones. The Church of England was perceived as the bastion of national ethical values to which it was the duty of all loyal subjects to assent. Being Christian, or at least professing to be, was part of British national identity. In this sense, in 1944, religious education had an obvious and clear raison d'etre. It was to ensure that each successive cohort of pupils understood and believed the dogmas of the Christian religion as part of their overall understanding of who they and their nation were. Over subsequent decades, however, this certainty about the purpose of religious education was lost. Perceptions of the Church of England changed and the question of national identity became more complex. Without these two underpinning supports, a clear rationale for religious education became difficult to establish. There have been many attempts to suggest alternative rationales for its continuance, but none have commanded universal appeal. By the second decade of the 21st century, there was widespread unease about the state of religious education. The Religious Education Council established the Commission on Religious Education, CORE, to review the legal, education and policy frameworks for religious education. The Dean of Westminster, Dr. John Hall, who chaired the commission, wrote in the foreword to the final report published in 2018, RE has significantly changed its approach in response to the changing nature of society. He declared that a new vision for RE was needed if it is not to wither on the vine. This new vision is summed up in the phrase religion and worldviews, which is to replace the term religious education. Children, he writes, now need to be prepared for a world of great religion and belief diversity. Prima facie, this appears tantamount to an admission that RE does indeed have no internal disciplinary structure and coherence, but is simply a part of the ongoing process of socialisation in society. Its changes are not its own, but are rather determined by changes in the nature of the environing society. To put these changes between 1944 and 2021 in a nutshell, you could say that RE in the 1940s essentially said to children, you must believe the Christian worldview because it is the only truth. In the 2020s, RE says to children, you must respect each person's different worldview because it is true for them. It is difficult to imagine any other subject on the school curriculum performing such a total volte-face. The teaching of mathematics, history or physics are recognisably similar in the two socio-historical contexts. The overall aims of each are the same through time. Changes that have occurred are largely the result of developments internal to each subject. Not so for RE. The core report can be read as a formal recognition of this fact. The choice of the word worldviews is itself revealing. The report explains that it is taken from the German Weltanschauung, meaning a person's way of understanding, experiencing and responding to the world. In the executive summary, the report explains that it is the school's responsibility to help each individual pupil to understand, reflect on and develop their own personal worldview. This proposal is highly significant. The job of the RE teacher now is not to induct pupils into a religion, not to teach them about the variety of religions that other people believe in, but rather to help them to formulate their own individual credo and conception of reality, which they can then expect everybody else to respect. And this credo is to be focused very much on the world of here and now, and how people relate to one another, rather than on questions of ultimate significance and meaning. The core report is a response to the widespread perception that RE as a distinct subject on the school curriculum is now really in the last chance saloon. In the introduction to his book Reforming RE, Mark Chater writes of the fall of RE and declares it is a death. In his comment on the cover of the same book, Professor Trevor Cooling, chair of the Religious Education Council, talks of the real possibility that it will shrivel away. The core report itself points out that at school level the study of worldviews is inherently multidisciplinary. Well, if it is multidisciplinary and covered by other subjects, the obvious question will inevitably be more and more raised: what is the point of RE? Furthermore, the proposed skills which the study of religion and worldviews is supposed to develop have nothing specifically to do with religion. For example, analysing a range of primary and secondary sources, understanding symbolic language, using technical terminology effectively, showing respect for others. The whole emphasis behind these proposals is on helping pupils to understand difference and diversity and to respect other people in all their variety. In 1944, when national identity was organised around a monocultural collective belief in Christianity, it was necessary for RE to be about Christian theology and doctrine. In 2021, when national identity is based on pride in Britain as a diverse, multicultural and multi-ethnic society, then RE needs to be about the sociological understanding of difference. Indeed, it is sometimes argued that concern for social justice and respect for diversity now actually constitute a new religion. The foundational belief is the existence of institutionalised structural inequalities and prejudice against specific minorities, and a narrative locating responsibility for this injustice in past colonial oppression by Western societies. The putative religion imposes sanctions on those who question the legitimacy or the truth of its prevailing dogmas. The public shaming and ostracising of any person making public statements deemed unacceptable, which is characteristic of what has come to be called cancel culture, arguably resembles the treatment of heretics in the Middle Ages. People are expected to demonstrate their piety with regard to these doctrines, and consequently politicians and other public figures now spend a good deal of their time virtue signalling in a manner not dissimilar to ostentatious religious observances in past eras. Whether or not this can be called a religion, it is the kind of culture that schools are now seeking to prepare children for. In 2021, it seems the most important thing they need to know is the supreme value of equality and to have respect for diversity. The big problem for RE now, however, is that this 2021 territory is already catered for by other subjects and established curriculum requirements. And so again the question is raised, what is the point of RE? The importance of this question is brought into even sharper relief when set against the situation in other avowedly secular countries with no history of RE. They too are vitally concerned with teaching their pupils about social justice and diversity. In France, for example, lessons in Éducation civique et morale are expected to offer a time of reflection on the basis of one's relationship to others in a democratic society. And these lessons are expected to develop such skills as being capable of setting aside one's own opinions and beliefs, being capable of appreciating others in their diversity and in their differences. Thus, in its curriculum for civic and moral education, the secular French education system is doing more or less exactly what the core report proposes. Moreover, the French curriculum is explicitly taught without reference to anything religious or theological. But then the core report proposals also shy away from anything specifically theological. Their aim is the same as the French aim, to teach respect for others in their difference and diversity. The moral objective espoused by both is identical. The only difference is that the Core Commission continue to think that as well as teaching the current morality centred on diversity, it is helpful to spend curriculum time describing to the pupils the particularities of a variety of differing religious and non-religious beliefs and practices. This begs the obvious question: is it really necessary to know the intricate details of other groups' conceptions of the world in order to understand the principle that other people should be respected, whatever they believe? The answer seems to me to be self-evidently no. And this is the key issue. We should respect other people because they share our humanity and, in the school context, also our citizenship and national identity. Such respect does not depend on understanding every detail of a group or a person's worldview, which in any case is by definition an impossible task. Indeed, it is arguable that presenting children with the details of diverse religious and non-religious convictions can be positively unhelpful and counterproductive. Many religions and political ideologies have a terrible record on treating particular groups and individuals with appallingly bad discrimination and cruelty. And in many parts of the world where such religions and ideologies continue to exercise power, they still do. Any child being taught about the doctrines behind the treatment of women, gay people, or free thinkers, for example, in such countries, is at risk of developing a profound feeling of negativity towards the followers of the religion or political ideology which espouses them. And even if the Cook's tour of religions and ideologies advocated by the Core Report does not lead children to view particular ones negatively, the question still has to be asked, what is the point? They don't need this information to understand the morality they must now embrace. Time is hugely pressured in the modern curriculum. There are so many competing demands based on things it is absolutely essential for pupils to know, understand, and be able to do in the contemporary world. I suspect that the Cook's tour will come under growing pressure because it will increasingly look like a less than good use of precious curricular bandwidth. In conclusion, I think it is probable that the Core Report will be seen in times to come as a final stage in the demise of RE as a recognisable subject. Its focus on the morality of respecting difference will of course be kept, but it will likely be linked into a revised civic education focused on understanding the rights and duties of citizens and valuing a national identity based on diversity. The argument throughout this paper has been that RE does not have and never did have a disciplinary particularity. In 1944, it was needed to support a national identity based on religious belief and other worldly theological concerns. Now that national identity is based on diversity and this worldly sociological concerns, it is no longer needed, and to use again the words of Dean John Hall and Professor Trevor Cooling, it is likely to wither on the vine and shrivel away.